Thank you all so much for coming out tonight. My name is Dan Perez. I'm an Executive Director of America's Impact. And welcome all of you to our Allies Welcome Reception.
But it's really about supporting these members and magnifying your voice. If you have $50, $100, $1,000 to give, we are about connecting members with the resources that they need in order to make smart decisions on foreign policy. We are here to magnify your voice if you care about these issues, to develop ongoing, lasting relationships with these members, and we're about getting them elected and keeping them in Congress.
We're very honored here tonight to introduce you to Congressman Patrick Murphy of Florida. But just really quickly, before the Congressman comes up, I'd like to thank NDN for hosting us tonight. And I'd like to thank you all for joining us.
Thank you.
So, I mean, this night is just about introductions. We'd like to, many of you here are members, but for those of you who this is your first time, we'd just like to tell you a little bit about the organization. Every day, especially today, we see the impact that Congress is having on foreign policy. Senator John Kerry, he was just recently confirmed as Secretary of State. His entire experience, his entire resume is coming from his chairmanship of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. The sequester, which I'm sure you're all very tired of hearing about, is going to have impacts all across the board, from our troops, training to health programs to USAID contracts. And so there's things every day that highlight how important foreign policy, our domestic politics, are to U.S. foreign policy, and what a critical role Congress plays in that. And so here at America's Impact, we're bringing together a community of people who want to change that. We want to make sure that Congress is aware of the importance that foreign policy has on U.S. domestic politics and vice versa. So if you're here tonight, we invite you to come out to other events that we'll be hosting this year. If you saw our sign up front and you want to get on our mailing list, just fill out one of those cards, or come and talk to any one of the other executive directors. We'll be happy to talk to you. And also, just a very quick plug, if you would like to help support this event tonight and some of the alcohol we've been able to provide, we have cards on the back if you would just like to pledge a few dollars, anything you'd like, just to help us keep throwing events like this. So thank you again for coming out tonight, and I'd like to turn the floor over to Vicente Garcia.
Again, I'd like to, as Dan was saying, I also serve on the executive committee at America's Impact, and we really appreciate everyone for coming out today. Our members is what really drives our organization and the success of our organization. And I think one individual that is a really good example of the impact America's Impact has is with Congressman Patrick Murphy. As many of you know, he had a very close race with Allen West. And it took a while. I think it wasn't called until November 20th, I believe, after the actual elections. And so every dollar that we raised, every event that we did, I like to think really helped get the congressman into Congress. And so I really like to thank our members, and I really encourage those of you who are not members to become members, so we can get folks like the congressman elected to Congress. As you all know, he's a congressman from Florida, represents the 18th Congressional District. And I think a lot of you pretty much have seen him in the headlines quite a bit, whether it be for the race or being the youngest congressman in Congress. And it's really impressive. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome the congressman to say a few words.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Vicente, for that great introduction. I'm glad to hear that Allen West line still works. That's nice. I got a couple more months of that, I guess. Anyway, it's great to be here. Thank you all for your support. Dan, thank you for everything. We met quite a few months ago, and thank you all for your support. The little bit, whether there's a lot, whether there's a little, everybody played an important role in this race. And as I tell everyone, we were out to spend about 4 to 1, and we still prevailed. That's because of the support of so many people. So thank you all very much for that support. This is a great cause. Dan and I have spoken about this at length, and as we look down the barrel of sequestration, which, as probably going to turn out, it is going to go into effect. I've been in several meetings today, the last few days, with several senators, other members of the House, Republicans, Democrats alike. There is no alternate plan right now. This looks like it's going to go into effect. And what's so sad about it is that there are Republicans that are actually happy about this, that are applauding this sequester. And to me, this just shows how dysfunctional our government continues to be. And it's embarrassing, quite frankly, what we're doing right now. We are manufacturing these crises, whether it's a sequester, a debt ceiling, fiscal cliff, one thing after another. When we need more certainty, more predictability, we are adding uncertainty. And I believe our government's holding back our entrepreneurs, our businesses that are trying to invest and expand right now. And this is going to affect teachers, it's going to affect students, infants trying to get vaccines. Of course, the unemployment that's going to come along with it. Just in my state alone, in Florida, they're predicting about 80,000 people will lose their jobs. An additional 35,000 small businesses are going to have to let go or not hire some people. So the effects are dramatic. But beyond that, what is so frustrating is we are again showing the world that we're dysfunctional. When S&P 500 downgraded us 500 and some days ago, it wasn't because of our debt. It was because we were a dysfunctional government, and here we are doing it again. So right now, when we're worried about the $85 billion that's about to go and be taken out of our economy, if S&P downgrades us, if Moody's downgrades us, and our credit rating changes, it's going to happen overnight. It's out of our control. And the 7% or so of interest that we're paying now on our debt is going to double, perhaps more. And then you're going to be talking about hundreds of billions of dollars that we're going to have to account for. And it's really going to affect our foreign policy. And that's what I think you all probably want to talk about more than anything is the effects on foreign policy. And at a time like this, where we need more leadership, more diplomacy, less boots on the ground, it's critical that we have the resources and the people in place, especially intelligence, to prepare for what's happening across the world. These are such unpredictable times we're living in right now. What's happening in North Korea, what's happening in the Middle East, and China. One of the biggest threats to our country right now, I'll take a step back. We had a great meeting at the Pentagon about 3 weeks ago when Leon Panetta, the Joint Chiefs of Staff, gave a presentation with all the freshmen. There's 84 freshmen, about 60 or so showed up. They said the single biggest threat to our country right now is cyber terrorism. And we're seeing it on our government, and we're seeing it on private industry. And we need to really pick up the pace here and acknowledge what's happening here, whether it's the attacks or whether it's the theft of our intelligence or our businesses, their data. We need to be ready for it. And the only way we're going to do that is through funding where necessary, making smart investments. And that's what's so frustrating about what we're doing right now, is we're being blind to the big picture and making these short-term cuts when we really need to be worried about the big picture. And as I look around this room, it kind of reminds me of why I decided to run for Congress in the first place. A big part of why I decided to run was because so many of the issues being debated right now, so much of what's being legislated on is going to affect our generation, more than my parents and more than my grandparents. And whether it's Social Security or Medicare, or whether it's what we're doing when it comes to foreign policy, these are decisions. And the framework that we're laying out right now is going to affect us. So it's critical that we have some bipartisanship, that we have some people working together across the aisle to solve these problems. Because that idea of my way, the highway, it simply doesn't work. And that was another big reason why I ran, and the person I ran against, I think, was the epitome of what was wrong with Congress. That mentality. and voters saw it. And I think that's, what's so great about our government and our Congress is it's the people's house. If people aren't happy with it, they can make changes right away, despite being outspent by so much. So I'll just note one more thing. The group of freshmen, 84 of us, as I said, I was able to work with a Republican from North Carolina. His name is Robert Pittenger. And we were able to put a letter together that we sent to President Obama, Leader Pelosi, and Speaker John Boehner. We did it about 2 weeks ago. We had a little press conference to follow. And there was 3 main principles in that letter. 32 people signed on to the letter of the freshman class. And it said, number 1, that this freshman class is going to work in a bipartisan manner. We're not going to have that idea of my way to hire. That doesn't work in your family, doesn't work in business, and definitely doesn't work in government. Number 2 is we want common sense solutions. We're not going to demagogue and blame President Obama or President Bush or Clinton or Reagan, or there's plenty of blame to go around. Let's focus on the solutions and let's look forward. And number 3, we need a grand bargain. We need to go big with our ideas and our solutions. And these sequesters and fiscal cliffs and debt ceilings are the exact opposite of what we need to be doing. So this letter was an acknowledgement to leadership that as a freshman class, when they are ready to go big, that we are going to be able to deliver quite a few votes to them. And I think that's what the public wants. I think we all acknowledge when we look at the numbers that we need a grand bargain right now. We've got to put everything on the table and acknowledge that we're not going to get 100% of what we want, but nor is the other party. So let's accept it. Let's make the tough decisions now and move on, and then let government get out of the way when it comes to our fiscal house. So anyway, I thank you all again very much for your support. I look forward to working with you all. I have an open door policy. By all means, if you have a question, if you want to reach out, I'd love to answer your questions. If you want to come by my office, please do any time that we're in session. I'll be there. I'd love to take a couple minutes to talk with you all. And if you have any questions, I'd love to answer a few if you all would like. That'd be fine. I'd love to answer a couple questions. And again, thank you very much for your support. All at once. Okay.
What are your thoughts on our new Secretary of Defense?
It was interesting time in getting there. That's for sure. This is somewhat historic just getting there. So, I think the president definitely made a noble effort in picking the senator. We'll see how it plays out. There are definitely some concerns that I think were answered thoroughly. The hearings were pretty strenuous. Just watching them, not being a part of it, I was stressed out just watching them. So I'm sure he was too. So I support the selection. I support the confirmation, and we need a strong secretary. No question about it. What's happening now? We have an important role in the world's position right now, and we need to maintain our strength, and I think it is important that we have a strong secretary there to do that.
Tim Rivera from the British Council. Thank you very much for being here, Congressman. I don't want to say necessarily that this question is based on the individual whom you beat in your recent congressional race, but what do you think is the most important single thing that we can do to repair relations with, if you'll forgive the term, the Muslim world?
The most important thing? Wow, that's a good question. There's so much that has to be done. We need to start fresh. I mean, that would be a good place. I think there are a lot of people, especially Democrats, willing to reach out to start doing whatever it takes to repair those relations, and understanding that when it comes to a country like Iran, acknowledging that when the Green Revolution started, that there is a big difference between the leadership in Iran and the vast majority of the population. And acknowledging that Green Revolution really kick-started this Arab Spring. And I think it's important that leaders in our government, really on the other side of the aisle, very frankly, acknowledge the difference there. And that, as a whole, when you're looking at the masses, there is a strong desire for democracy. rightfully so. And no democracy is formed overnight. Ours certainly wasn't formed overnight. And I think it's critical that America does what it can to foster the growth of democracy across the world. But we have to know our role, and it's a very strategic and it's a very fine line on how we do that. But it begins with simply relations and trust.
Are there any particular bills that you're involved in right now that you feel deserve some publicity or acknowledgement?
I was a co-sponsor on the VAWA bill, the Violence Against Women. Until today, the House wasn't going to bring the Senate version to the floor. They were going to do their own version. So I was an original co-sponsor on that. That is something critical to me. But thankfully, they realigned and did bring the Senate version and will be bringing it to the floor. So that's important. There are several bills I'm looking at right now, getting involved with. There are some big picture bills that I don't have enough information to speak on publicly yet, but in the next 2 to 3 weeks, part of this letter that I wrote with the freshman class, part of that is starting a group called United Solutions, and it's a bipartisan group of the freshman class. And it's what I said, is it's getting over the rhetoric and really talking about the problems at hand and trying not to let partisanship get in the way. So in the next couple of weeks, you should see some more, and we'll be press releasing it and keep you better informed.
Good, thank you.
Yes.
Sure. So I have a question not about who you ran against, but who you succeeded in your district. So there are a lot of both senators and representatives who speak out a lot on foreign policy, particularly their views on international cooperation. And the person who you succeeded, Representative Ross Layton, was very ardently opposed to international cooperation, quite isolationist, and particularly very against U.S. participation in the United Nations. So my question is, what do you think Congress's role in setting the tone of U.S. foreign policy is, and how does that impact dialogue across the country, not only in Washington, but for people in districts across the U.S.?
Sure. So the district number, Florida went through this whole redistricting process, and I'm now representative of District 18, but it's actually Congressman Rooney's old district. It's really weird what happened, but I get your questions. We have to maintain our position as leaders when it comes to foreign policy. There are a lot of countries that still look up to us, and we have some ground that we need to make up, in my opinion. I think what we did by going to war with Iraq, what President Bush did there, was one of the biggest mistakes our country's ever made. And we are still recovering from that, and we're going to continue to have to build trust with a lot of countries and organizations such as the United Nations. And we need to take a more moderate tone. As I said earlier, we need more diplomacy, more leadership, and less boots on the ground. We need to use our intelligence to our advantage and not rush to boots on the ground as some others have tried to do. Do one more.
Can you name a few specific ways that you think that the sequester is going to actually affect foreign policy, and also do you think that we're going to have to rethink some of our national security strategy because of that?
Sure. I need to be careful how I say this, but
Nobody's writing anything down.
it's always being recorded. Because of some of the realignment and really a large part of our government, because of the sequester and other previous cuts that have been made in other negotiations, the president has agreed to about $1.6 trillion in cuts over the next decade. So there's already cuts in place, and now the sequester is additional cuts. And through that, specific to defense, I believe that our defense will be stronger, because we are now having to prioritize where the money is being spent. And part of what Leon Panetta presented is something that I've believed for years, that things change. We have to keep up with the times. And our military, in large part, is living in a Cold War era mentality. And he basically said, we will not really have probably another war where we're storming the beaches of Normandy mentality. It's going to be special ops. It's going to be intelligence. It's going to be cyber warfare. It's going to be drones. It's going to be all sorts of new warfare that we never would have imagined, 40, 50 years ago. So because of that, now our leaders have to prioritize where the spending is going to go. And I think that will actually make us stronger at the end of the day. Right now it's going to be tough, but I think if we look back in 5 years, 10 years, we're going to say, you know what, hopefully, keep your fingers crossed, we actually prioritize the money to cyber terrorism, to special ops, that sort of thing. And I think it'll make us stronger as a country. So we'll see. I'm an optimist always, though. So we'll see what happens. So, thank you all very much. I appreciate your support.
Well, thank you all very much. This is going to be the last one, I promise, and it'll be short. So I just wanted to, I'm Brett Bosserman. I'm on the executive committee here at AI, and I wanted to say that AI in the 2012 cycles funded 6 successful congressional races. Pat is one of those, and we're very proud about that. But looking forward to 2014, I'm sure that the congressman will be the first one to tell you that it doesn't stop. That you've got to keep looking, you've got to keep raising money, and we want to not only elect great members who care about the issues we care about, but we want to keep them in power. And we want to be able to connect them to the people who care about those issues and support them both financially and non-financially. So AI is ready. We're in a period of aggressive growth. We're looking to expand from 6 to 20 for the 2014 cycle. And so as much as we'll go ahead and let Dan float above the fray, and then I'll go ahead and take the bullet and be the person who steps in afterward and says, it's not about beer and about the chips as much, although there is more beer and chips, so feel free to stay, but it's really about supporting these members and magnifying your voice. If you have $50, $100, $1,000 to give, we are about connecting members with the resources that they need in order to make smart decisions on foreign policy. We are here to magnify your voice if you care about these issues, to develop ongoing, lasting relationships with these members, and we're about getting them elected and keeping them in Congress. So please, there are forms outside where you can put your name and address down. We would love to connect with you. Whatever you're able to donate for this cause, let's make sure that people like Pat can stay in office, and so find any one of the 3 of us, let us know, and let's really make sure that there is a funding community to stand up for the things that we care about going forward. So that's it. Please stay, have more beer, have more wine, and then go ahead and let any of us know if you're ready to actually support these members in 2014. Have a great night.